What is happening, Swanky fam? I'm Reed out here at the beautiful Swanee Creek Park, getting ready to give you guys a recap of this weekend's tournament in Waco, Texas, the Waco Annual Charity Open. Before I get into it, just make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, and yeah, let's see what we got. All right, guys, it was an awesome weekend in Waco this weekend. We weren't there, we weren't able to catch any of the action in person, but man, the coverage was great, the action was great. There was a lot of intensity, a lot of new faces on lead cards, which is always nice. And I'm not gonna give you guys a full recap of the event. You guys can go check out Jomez and all of that to watch the action unfold. But I just wanna hit a few highlights, like what does this event mean going forward for the Disc Golf Pro Tour? The happenings, who won, who did well, who didn't do well, and what we should expect to see going forward from this event. So yeah, you guys I'm sure know by now that Nico LaCastro took the event down. He played just insanely consistent golf. I think he shot 9 down the first 2 rounds. And was he 10 down the last day? I mean, he was just consistent through and through. I know he ended at 26 down. I think he was 9 down, 9 down, 8 down. I mean, that's just beautiful consistency. When everyone else out there is struggling to shoot 5 down, 6 down, Nico's performance was amazing. I know he was coming off of an injury, so that's even more impressive. I mean, he was out there with something to prove. So props to Nico, great job. Following him up, we had Kale LaVisca, who we always love to see on lead cards, Bradley Williams, and then in 4th and 5th, we had Calvin Heimberg and Paul Macbeth. Now those two that has to be the sneakiest 4th and 5th place finish for those 2 top pros that we've ever seen. I mean, like, they weren't even really in the mix at all. Calvin was sort of in the mix. Paul shot a fantastic 9 down the last day to pull himself into that 5th spot, but they weren't really factors all weekend. I mean, even Ricky Wysocki, who we thought was sort of going to be a factor, didn't end up even finishing. I think he was outside the top 7. I mean, it's just crazy to think how these finishes came down for these top pros. So yeah, that's your top 5. On the FPO side, we had Kona Panis taking it down, and that's just like, that's so cool to me. She's really stormed onto the scene this year. She won the All-Star weekend, and she didn't have a stellar performance. I think she was on lead card at one point in Vegas, but then she sweeps in and wins Waco, 2 out of the first 3 major Disc Golf Pro Tour events. I mean, if you count All-Star Weekend, I count it. I mean, it was an event. It may not count towards the Pro Tour points, but it's a great title to have. And it's cool now that Hot Coco, Kona and Colton Montgomery now have both won Waco. That's really cool. So yeah, lots of great action in the FPO side. Is this a breakout year for Kona? This is turning into something really cool for her. I hope she can keep it up and sort of break into that Paige Pierce and Katrina Allen mix that's been going for so long. So yeah, props to Kona. All right, guys, so let's just jump into what we liked. Okay, we love to see diversity on lead cards. We love to see new players. Disc golf's a top-heavy sport. Your big names, Paul Macbeth, Calvin Heimberg, Eagle McMahon, Kevin Jones, Chris Dickerson. We hear them over and over again. They're on lead cards all day, every day. But we finally got some fresh faces, and that was super awesome. I mean, Nico's not exactly a fresh face. He's a top 10 player for sure, and he proved it this weekend. But Bradley Williams, Kale LaVisca, we love to see new names. I mean, Gavin Rathbun, even though he fell off a little bit at the end, it was great to see that diversity on the lead card. Another thing I like to see is Chris Dickerson stepping out of his comfort zone and going and playing at Waco. We saw him at the All-Star weekend. I think that was his first time on a plane. And now he's playing in Waco. He never plays these events, guys. Like, he's never out here. He sticks to the East Coast. He sticks to the events he knows and that he plays. And that's why we never see him at the beginning of the year. We always see him towards the end. So I'm super stoked to see who I consider to be a top 5 player in the MPO actually playing like all the major events. So I'm super stoked to see him out and about. All right, guys. What did we not like? What were we disappointed by this weekend? And I have to say, we had some really disappointing play from a lot of our top players. I mean, Eagle McMahon finished at 7 down, but I think he was was he even or +2 through 2 rounds? I mean, he had a terrible first 2 days. He really let the wind get in his head. Kevin Jones too performed terribly. I mean, we just had some pretty, rough play from those guys. And even Paul, Calvin, Ricky, like guys like that, I mean, they were sort of in the mix. They were playing decently and they finished decently well, but not what we've come to expect from them, right? So that was a little bit disappointing. But I'm sure they'll bounce back. And so that just brings me to our 2 takeaways from Waco, guys. So number 1 takeaway is that the top pros are human. Okay, we've got Eagle McMahon coming off of a huge win at Vegas, looking absolutely unstoppable. I'm sure he was in everyone's grip 6. And yet here he is, not performing well at all. Same with Kevin Jones. Like, these guys are top pros and they are not playing well at these events. They're human. They can have off weeks. Even Paige Pierce, didn't play up to her standards. I mean, Kona popped off and she deserved to win the event. But Paige Pierce didn't play up to her standards. I mean, her standards are taking down every single event. So that's our number 1 takeaway, guys. The top pros are human. But our number 2 takeaway, and I want you guys all to remember this, let's not overreact, okay? Do not overreact to this. Paul Macbeth, Calvin Heimberg, Wysocki, McMahon, Kevin Jones, Chris Dickerson, all these guys are still our top pros. And you should still be putting them in your grip 6 next event, which I think is it Texas State's is the next event? They should still be in your grip 6. They still deserve to be, and we still fully expect them to get out there next weekend and perform at whatever event they're at. We're still picking Paul Macbeth to win every single event he plays in because he's Paul Macbeth. The man's still in his prime. So, I mean, maybe he's not in his prime, but he's got a lot of years left, guys. And he's got $10 million backing him now. Let's not overreact. Let's stay cool. So yeah, guys, that's Waco. Be sure you stay tuned to the channel. We got a lot more content coming. And yeah, keep an eye on the Pro Tour. Disc golf's just begun, guys. We got a lot more coming for you. Keep an eye on the channel. Subscribe, like. We'll see you in the next one. Stay swanky.